Hello, Maria.
Hello,
So
Giotto.
today we speak about Fetter 8.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big one. A Fetter 8. Yeah.
So what is it? What is it about Fetter 8?
Well, it's a very subtle illusion to that usually avoids detection actually, because a lot of people actually feel like they've actually realized full enlightenment when before they break Fetter 8, because it can be a very pleasant feeling in a sense to it can seem like you are one with everything and so on, but actually you've subtly you've stopped identifying, say, with the cruder things such as the mind, the body, certainly any agency. You've stopped reacting, but you're still creating a subtle separate stage where the I am can exist. And it's a bit like identifying with consciousness itself or awareness itself.
So it's kind
Um,
of like a label. Do you agree? So whatever those people use,
right.
like usually those gurus, they say like you're one with the universe, you're one with God, you're one with whatever. But
Yeah.
then it's not even clear what it is. To me, it sounds more just like a label that has been assigned. So they have
Right.
just they have just changed the label for identity, and instead of being me, my body, it's the universal eternal consciousness. Which, I mean, maybe
Right.
it's also true. Yeah, I'm not saying that stuff does not exist. Maybe it does exist, but we
Right.
don't know for sure. And but it also seems that what those guys are doing here, they are not really experimentally going into what that thing could be, whatever it is, but they're
Mm-hmm.
just swapping labels. So it's like they go from me, my body, to me, the universe, and it's like problem solved by swapping labels. Do you agree?
Yes, I suppose you could just call it a matter of labeling, but it's also it can feel like it's what's the word? It's a kind of seductive thing in that it can feel quite pleasant, this sense that you can differentiate, so you can for one minute feel like you're one with the universe, and the next minute feel like basically you can focus on this very singular sense of I am, which can feel very expanded and very pleasant. And in fact, methodologically you focus first on whatever makes you feel I am, like I am, in order to get a sense of how the illusion's operating, right?
But sorry, just a second.
And
So I think so. Can we say that it is like a story? So it's like stories can make people feel good. So if I believe in God and I believe in
yeah,
heaven and hell, let's say I do stuff that I hate every day or whatever, and I think I'm doing something that will bring me to heaven. I feel good because
right,
I'm telling myself I'll go to heaven. So in some way, believing,
yeah,
and some people may associate feeling good with the
mm,
truth. So it's like if it makes me feel good, it must be the truth. Like my intuition is guiding me, blah blah blah, which sometimes it
yes,
does, but not always. So they may
not
feel,
always,
well, I am one with everything. I
yeah,
am one with the universe. I'm one with the God. I'm just whatever.
mm-hmm,
And so that story makes them feel good, just like believing in heaven may make you feel good, whether it's true or not. And
mm-hmm.
because they feel good, they may say, then it must be true because I feel good. So it's a form of
Yeah,
confirmation.
yeah, absolutely. In fact, I thought, as part of my experience of being fettered innate, or focusing on what is it that makes me feel I am. What is this I am? I actually felt I never believed in God. I was brought up a Catholic and so on, but it was my first experience of feeling one with God. It's like I created a God in order to feel that lovely
So
sense of
you actually had that
expansion,
feeling.
love. What's that?
You actually had that experience, that feeling.
Yes, I did. I did for the first time in my life, actually, trying to break Fetter 8, or try to investigate first of all what was creating this sense of I am. For some people, it can feel like it's like a very subtle ghost in the machine, or it's like a soul, or it can feel like a sort of a oneness, with a greater sense of awareness, and that was what I was
But I mean,
experiencing
you
at that
actually
particular
felt it like as an
time.
actual experience, like some kind of you were in some kind of meditation. How did it work? How did you actually feel it, experience it?
I experienced it. It's a bit like that George Harrison's song, Here Comes the Sun, it was this amazing feeling of something very warm and like a presence, like a very expanded awareness that I was in contact with, I was in relationship with in some way, or subsumed within,
But then how
something like
come you
that.
then disqualified it as not true, as illusory, if you actually experience it? So because usually
Right.
people say I experience it, so it's true. So here you're saying that you experience it, but then you disqualified it later. I assume, because
Yes.
I know that
Yes,
to be.
well, I don't know exactly why it was disqualified. It's good word to use, actually. But it is in effect what I did. And probably just because it was a changeable state. It wasn't anything that's remained as part of my everyday experience. It was, it came along as part of trying to, like I say, investigate very closely. Oh, well, what is this I am that I am?
So if
This
if
I
it had
am that
been permanent, you would have kept it as a valid experience. You would have said then it must be true if it had stayed permanently, that feeling.
It's hard to speculate, but I think, if you're getting a really strong experience of, I think it's very difficult to retain any state, as a human being, just because of all the variables that go on.
Mm-hmm.
So in as much as it was a bit of a state-based change, then I think there was an inherence of distrust in it, or a sort of, there was a bit of a questioning of it, really. And I was aware somehow, I think this was the big clue, that that in amongst that oneness experience, I could tell that there was a lingering belief in my own existence. It was subtly dualistic. I am one with God, right?
Because you think basically the belief shouldn't be there regardless. So whatever you experience, you're just experiencing, but you shouldn't really go from experiencing to building a belief. I mean, you can say right now I'm experiencing this, whatever that means,
Right.
but it shouldn't become a belief, because a belief means that it's, and so even if you had felt this good feeling, let's say
Yeah.
permanently, in
Yeah.
theory, it shouldn't become a belief, because maybe it could stop tomorrow or maybe whatever. So maybe it
Right.
stops when you die. Maybe it's like you're just high on some very good drug and you
Right.
feel good as long as you live. But let's say you died and it's over. So
Yeah.
why assume that feeling good or any
Mm.
experience like this, like whether it's through meditation or through, I'm not sure, through
Right.
introspection or through drugs or whatever. Why? Basically, what you're saying is that we cannot really trust the experience either, because this is interesting, because all this
Yeah.
path of enlightenment is kind of based on experience.
Mm.
But here you are saying that we cannot really
Mm.
trust the experience either.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's it. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? This famous non-dualist teacher, Nisargadatta, I'm not sure I pronounce his name right, but a lot of people think he was teaching I am, self-realization, because a lot of his inquiry was to look into, whatever people felt that they are. I am, I am that. And in a way, it was very like the Fetter inquiry, actually. What you realize if you read him carefully is that he goes beyond that. He's actually saying that which you like most is that I am, the conscious presence, but that's not going to last forever. He talks about when
Or
the
at least
body
we don't
drops
know. I
off.
mean, the thing is, we don't know what is going to last forever, if anything.
Exactly. Right. And yeah, he goes on, in his teaching to say the primary illusion is only this knowingness that I am, and prior to that there was no illusion. And he's saying, well, this very consciousness is the source of illusion. And this illusion or consciousness, that or I amness, does not remain as something eternal. It's also liberated. And I think I don't know how, but I think I did intuit that. I did have a strong sense of I amness, in a, I guess, positive way. And then I realized, oh no, this isn't it. There's more to see here. Yeah, whether I'd have known that though without having the framework of the 10 fetters, I don't know. You know, I could have just got stuck there and thought,
You
well,
could
I've
have
done
got,
it.
basically, if you had not knew that there is something further, you could have got
Yeah,
stuck at 8. So
I
believing
could
that
have.
you are kind of the infinite eternal consciousness, blah blah blah, and just
Yeah,
stop there, and maybe believe that because that you cannot make that feeling persist, you're not yet fully realized, and if only you
yeah.
could make it persistence by doing more meditation or more nonsense, then you
Yes,
would
I
be
might
fully
have.
realized.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I see,
might
I
have
see.
gone. I might have gone that route because it was the most strongest, what you might call inverted commas, spiritual experience that I had in that whole
Yeah, and still you have to
unfettering
disqualify it.
process. Still, I had to disqualify it, sadly, in a
But
way.
so then what
But
is
yeah,
this identity? So it's like, because to some
right.
extent, I mean, we I see you, you see me. I
Yeah,
mean, this computer is in front of me, so I kind
sure.
of exist. I mean, I could say I exist. I think
Okay.
that's a fair statement to say I exist, because no,
Yeah.
but wait. So it's like, if I say I exist, it's kind of a fair statement, because if I did not exist, even if the reality is artificial, is a dream, is a simulation, whatever. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in order to have a dream, you must have a dreamer. So I see a computer in front of me now. Maybe it's not real, maybe it's a dream, whatever. But still, in order to perceive it, I must exist. So because I know that
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently perceiving something, and I don't even care if
Mm-hmm.
what I'm perceiving is in quotes real or not, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm perceiving something, I know I exist. So I know I exist. Now, that doesn't allow me to state what I am. I cannot say I am this or I am that, but
Mm-hmm.
I must be something, because I guess if I was nothing, then I will
Mm-hmm.
not exist. So
Right.
I can, because I exist, I can say that I am something, but I
Yeah.
cannot say what I am. So what
Right.
exactly is dropping in Fetter 8? Because we cannot say that there is no
Yeah.
me, as in, I mean, when we say there is no me, that cannot be translated as I do not exist, because we know that we exist. So how can we
Mm.
translate this there is no me better? That is, since it cannot be translated in I do not
Mm.
exist. So what
Well,
exactly is going away in Fetter 8? What exactly is dropping?
it depends how you. Firstly, I guess how you would define existence. What is it that makes your existence something
Well,
real?
it doesn't make it anything, but because I'm talking with you, I exist.
Right. But
I don't know if you exist.
yeah, but the thing is, I think that this is what we do. This is exactly what we do. Because I raise my hand, therefore there's an agent of raising my
No,
hand.
we are not talking
Because
about agent here. So
no, no, no,
I'm
I
not saying
know.
there is
No, no, but I'm doing a progression. So because I
okay.
think, therefore I am. Because I perceive this computer in front of me, there must be a perceiver. This is what we're dismantling as we go through this whole unfettering process.
Yeah, but we have
Because
not dismantled existence.
what does that mean, though? I mean, it's like
Well,
there is a
existence
way.
will be, yeah.
Well, you could
It's
say
the
that
opposite.
there is. Sorry, carry on. You go.
No,
You go.
is the opposite of nothing. So
Right.
if there was nothing, we would not be there talking. So there is
True.
something. Now, sure, maybe the putting I in front of it is incorrect. So maybe to say
Right.
I exist is incorrect. But let's say something exists, then it's like, because it's
Right.
obvious that something exists, because if not, we would not be talking. So
Mm.
something exists. So we are saying there is no me, which is the definition of the Fetter 8. We are saying there is no me, and so we can
Mm-hmm.
reduce, but we cannot reduce all the way to non-existence. So we have to
Mm.
kind of stop in between. So where exactly do we stop?
Right. Well, it's so strange. It's so strange in that way because actually one of the uh, phrases that you would use to look into I am is existence itself. I exist. You would intone the phrase and then see what it seems to correspond to in you. It's like as if you get the call and response with drums effect. So if you intone I exist or I am, or you can just use me if you want, and then see what that seems to correspond to in you. And it's not denying that obviously something still is operative, something's still here and doing things, and nominally my identity, your identity, female, male, in this country or that country. But it's I think what it is it's acknowledging that awareness is still, if you want to call it that, there's such a thing as awareness going on, but is it my awareness? Is it,
And
does
of
it
course, also then
necessitate
we can
an
question
awarer?
basically.
Yeah.
We can question if this awareness is associated with something. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there is something that exists. I think this is obvious.
Sure.
Now, the question is when we say I exist or me, we could start to appropriate it. And the idea itself of me or I could be also a concept potentially.
Yeah.
I don't completely agree because you know that I have this theory that I think that to some extent our identity is
Mm.
just the point of view, so it's as reduced as it can because you remove your body, you remove
Mm-hmm.
your status, but you remove also your memory, your thoughts, your perception, because all those are could be removed in the sense that, let's say, if because what is true, let's say that for example I swap
Mm.
bodies with you. So
Mm-hmm.
the question will be, what is effectively swapping bodies? Now, someone
Mm.
could say the brain, for example, but then it's still my brain in your body and your brain in my body. So maybe it will keep my memories, for example, and not your
Mm.
memories. So let's
Mm.
go further. And so at some point, we may just assume that there is, let's call it like a single point, which is what we perceive. So it's like if I put this point in my brain, then it will perceive everything. But again, you know the story that from Krishnamurti, that there is no distinction between in and out. So it's like a
Mm.
thought. If I have a thought, is no different than hearing a bird sing outside. There is not that the
Right.
thought is inside and the bird is outside. We
Right.
could argue that everything is outside if we want, or it's stupid because then nothing is inside or outside. But
Right.
let's just say that everything is outside because it's simpler to imagine. So
Okay.
there is that point that is just like a single point which cannot contain anything. It's as small as it can get, and it's just
Yeah.
the point of view of, so let's say there is reality, and reality can be observed through different point of view, and I could be a point of view, and this point of view happens to be located, let's say, in Joto's brain, whatever. But that point of view could easily be moved to your brain, and then I will experience your perspective. So, but it doesn't have any attribute or quality as in better or worse. So, because you, of course, Joto may have more or less money, more or less status, be more or less healthy, and be older or younger, whatever. But
Yeah.
that point of view has none of those properties, including the thoughts. The thoughts are external. So the thoughts happen in Joto's brain, and that point of
Mm.
view just happens to look at those thoughts. And that point, and there is a point of view that is currently looking at Giotto, and there is a
Mm.
point of view that is currently looking at Maria. And of course, we don't know when my body die, when Giotto body dies. We don't know if that point of view is gone because maybe it's gone, or maybe it moves to another body to
Right.
observe or whatever. We don't know. But I still think that there is such a thing as identity, which will be, but it has nothing, it has no attribution, it has no quality, it has nothing at all. So you
Mm-hmm.
basically, anything you can think of, you can remove. So you say, does it has this quality? And I think
Yeah.
Buddha does something similar when he say, this is not the self, this is not the self, this is not the self. I'm doing it
Yeah.
in a slightly different way, where I'm
Right.
saying, imagine that this thing has no quality and no attribute, and
Right.
any quality or attribute you can imagine, remove it from that thing. So it just has none, because it's not that I'm not saying
Right.
it's not this, it's not that. I'm more saying it's
Mm.
something that has no quality and no attribute and nothing at all. And anything you can associate, you are thinking of associating with it, you should remove. So you think, what about the thoughts? Remove. What about the body? Remove. What about the feelings? Remove. What about everything? So it just happened as just an angle, a point of view, a perspective over something bigger, and it's just looking through Giotto's body, but that could potentially change instantly. I mean,
Right.
maybe in 3 seconds it moves, because even if it moves to another perspective, let's say it moves to you, how will I know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because maybe I've been
Yeah.
experiencing Giotto. I know this sounds crazy, but maybe I've been experiencing Giotto only for 5 seconds, because maybe I was in
Right.
someone else's body. Just that as soon as this point of view moves to Giotto, he gets also all the memories of Giotto. But
Uh-huh.
we don't know. I mean, that thing was there also while Giotto was building those memories. We cannot know for sure. For now,
No.
that thing is whatever that thing is experiencing Giotto perspective, but it doesn't mean it always had and always will. It could even in 3 second move to another one. I mean,
Mm.
we don't know. Probably not, but we don't know.
Mm.
But the point I'm making is it's something without any attributes. So it's something with nothing. So everything that you can imagine to assign as a label or a quality or an attribute to the thing you remove, and it end up being just a perspective, like a coordinate. I think we used this example before to say it's just a set of coordinates. So it has no quality, it has no good or bad, it has no bad. It's just a set of coordinates. Do you think that could? Yeah, sorry.
Can you imagine even losing that sense of location or coordinates as well? Or do you think that would be like death? That would be like the end of everything for you?
Well, so this is a kind of tricky question. I'm not sure if it's completely relevant to Fetter 8, but I will still try. First of all, I wouldn't even assume that this thing has to kind of exist in time and space as we are used to. So it could also be a perspective within time and space, and so it could potentially move. So it could maybe in 3 seconds observe Giotto 5 years ago. So it doesn't even have to be in linear time potentially. So then in that case it cannot be lost. So, but the thing is, if that thing was lost, then in some way, because basically, I mean, then you could say it could switch to another one. So let's say this thing is lost, and then it switched to another one, a different coordinate. So that coordinate is gone. Even if in theory coordinates cannot really be gone because they just represent a location on something. So, but let's just assume that this coordinate is gone. Well, it could just switch to a different coordinate.
Right.
But then if all coordinates are gone, then in some way existence itself is gone. There is nothing that exists because you see, if you remove those coordinates, then I cannot see you. It's like, but not just that I cannot, nobody can. So everything is gone. So the existence has ceased to exist. It has nothing to do with that. It's more.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to push is whether the coordinates thing, which I get as a concept, I like the coordinates concept that you've come up with actually, because in a way it's it's very unpersonal, but I just think that one can personalize almost anything if you're keen to identify. It's like Nisargadatta said, you did not have the concept of I am in the course of the 9 months in the womb, right? The concept I am goes spontaneously, comes spontaneously, but amazingly, when it appears, it's accepted as real. So this identification we can have that's to do with Fetter 8 can be so subtle. It doesn't need even a body, a mind. You could say that it's, you could pin it maybe like a coordinate, but you'd still be somehow subtly pinning it. This is my.
Say,
I am my unique.
If you remove. Because the thing is, we have always experienced this perspective. Now, of course, we have associated specific qualities on top of this perspective, which are stories. But the perspective itself is not a story because it's something we already have we always have experienced.
Give me an example of what. Yeah.
So what I want to say is when we attribute qualities on top of that perspective of those coordinates, it's kind of a story. We are just assigning stuff, attributing stuff, and it's just done like this. It doesn't really mean anything because it doesn't. I mean, we're just adding a story on top of those coordinates. But those coordinates, I don't think they are a story because they are. I mean, I know that I know that something is perceiving something. I will remove the word I, but I mean, there is something. So something exists and something is perceiving / being perceived. I cannot deny that because I've always experienced it. I don't have a single second in my life where this was not being experienced. So it's kind of hard to remove it. And it almost feels that trying to remove it is almost like trying to tell myself a story out of it. So now the story of non-identity. So kind of attaching an attachment to the idea of non-identity, so which could become a form of identity. So I am non-identity. So I think it's kind of tricky. One has to be careful not to fall for the other side of the trap where you say, but maybe there is a very subtle sense of identity in that set of coordinates. Can you remove it? But I cannot. The only way I can remove it is by adding a story that it's not there, because it has always been there, and I've never experienced even for a second that it's not there. So how can I deny? Yeah.
Can you explain what is there then? That feeling of that unique coordinates. That I mean, this is not me being disingenuous.
No, there is no feeling. It's just curious. So it's just more from reasoning. So it's like
Right.
because something exists and something is being perceived, and it appears that there are more than one body potentially that are kind of similar to me, and I know I'm perceiving something, I kind of assume that there is a high chance that the other bodies are also perceiving something. So it seems like as if there was maybe a reality, whatever that is, and different
Mm-hmm.
coordinates, and but that reality includes everything. So it's like, it's not that there is, let's say, the world and then me and you. Me and you
Right.
are part of the world. It's like there is just,
Yeah.
let's say, everything, let's say reality, like a bunch of atoms, and
Mm-hmm.
then there are specific coordinates from which those atoms are looked at. But if
Okay.
you remove those coordinates, because we know that we are looking at those atoms, let's say, from some perspective. So I'm
Right.
looking from one perspective, you're looking from another, and I don't know what is I, and I don't know what is you, and it doesn't even matter.
Right.
But basically, I'm not omniscient. So if something exists, this is, we know
Right.
something exists. So, or we
Mm-hmm.
would not be having this conversation. So something exists,
Yeah.
um, but
Something's
we are
going on.
not, we are not experiencing omniscience.
Mm-mm.
So because something exists and we are not experiencing omniscience, then we are seeing it from a single coordinate, a single perspective. There is no specific feeling, it's just a reasoning. So I'm just saying something exists, or we wouldn't be talking about it. That's step one.
Okay.
Step two
Right.
is, I don't feel like I'm omniscient because I have no idea
Right.
what you're thinking, but I know what I mean, I don't know what Maria is thinking, but I know what Jota is thinking. So I
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm not omniscient. So then
Mm-hmm.
if something exists and I'm not omniscient, then I must be, something must be observing that thing from a specific coordinate. Now, but that coordinate doesn't need to have any specific quality of any kind. It just happened to be an angle from which
Mm-hmm.
something is perceived. Like if you hold a stone in your hand, you have many combinations in which you could rotate it and see, but none of
Mm-hmm.
those angle has any specific property of any kind. It's just a random angle from which you're looking at the stone. But
I
still,
get
you
it.
have to pick an angle to look at the stone. You cannot be
Yeah.
omniscient about the stone, that you close your eye like a Jedi and you feel the stone. No, you have
Right.
to pick an angle to look at the stone. So to me, it seems that ultimately this is kind of what is, this is what identity feel after Fetter 8. And I feel that trying to go further than that, to deny, let's say, the obvious, the experience
Mm-hmm.
that we
Mm-hmm.
see things, is kind of building a story. So it's trying to cheat and build us to get out of it from a story by saying, and you then
Right.
becomes, I am non-identity, I am non-existence, but existence is there.
Right. Yeah.
Non-existence
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is a story.
No, no. I think the seeming nihilism is really part of the only part of the process, isn't it? Of letting go of identification, because it's like that Zen saying, which I can never quote very well. But before enlightenment, there are mountains and there are rivers, and then in the process of awakening, that you see them as not being there because you've taken away what the reality you ascribed to them that was
Yeah, and
extra.
then they
You
come
know
back.
and
Then you see the
then,
mountains
yeah, in
again.
the end, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers because it's just not the ones that you thought they were. It's not the way.
Yes, yes, they
So it's a
change.
bit similar with the experience
It's a different
of that.
definition of mountain. So there is still a
Yes,
mountain, but it's a different definition.
yes, yes, it's still a mountain. We're not sort of gone into this denial of, there's something out there, isn't there, that we're all agreeing is so, like that's a cup, and we do live in a symbolic world as well, where we identify a thing, or identify a Giotto and a Maria and a country and a, you know,
I mean,
um,
for me, the main difference, let's say, from to describe like an emotional state or an experience of dropping Feather 8,
mhm,
is that because the identity as coordinate is just really, I mean, it's just to explain to you how it feels now.
sure,
But let's look,
yeah,
how did it feel before? So if you see identity as more than a set of coordinates, I think the
mm,
main symptom is that you feel that there is something to defend about identity. So because
right,
it's more than a set of, you will never defend a set of coordinates. There is nothing to defend. But if
yeah.
you believe that it's more, let's say you believe that it's your body, or it's your personality, or it's that you're smart, or that you're rich, or that you're great, or that you did this, or that you're better than others, or you're more holy, or you will go to heaven, or God loves you, each one of those qualities, if you believe that they are you, then you feel the need to defend them. with others and with you. So you feel the need to constantly validate them, even if it's
Yeah.
something highly, let's say, in quotes, spiritual. So I'm very spiritual guy. So someone say you're not, you're just like a greedy guy, I say, oh
Right.
my God,
Right.
of course not. I'm so generous and nice and spiritual. I meditate 3 hours a day. So I think the identity before Fetter 8, it can be a million stories that we tell ourselves, a million things. But I think the main characteristic, the main trick to detect it is if you ever feel the need to defend it. So if
Right.
at any time you feel
Mm,
the need that you have to defend this identity against yourself, from others, from
right.
any attack, any criticism, whatever,
Mm, hmm.
then it's clearly more than a set of coordinates, because you will
Right.
never defend, if no one will ever in his sane mind will think of
Yeah.
defending a set of coordinates. But
What's
anything
the?
more,
Mm,
the slightest quality you will attribute to this set of coordinates, then you may and eventually feel you have to define it, and then it's just a story you're adding to the set of coordinates.
yes.
That is at least my experience. What is your experience? Do you think this makes sense, what I'm saying?
It does make sense. I mean, it's interesting because as part of my own process, letting go of Feta 8, I looked at how I even defended against some experience as being not to do with me. Some experience is okay as part
Mm,
of me, and some experience is not okay. And it usually was just related to my preferences. I like the sound of birdsong as opposed to the sound of traffic, coming past my house. So it's like on some level, I noticed it's a very subtle thing to notice, but you can notice that it's like you subtly portion off some experience as being this is okay, this belongs to my identity, this belongs this is part of my inner world, and that is not. So it's like you
like a
know,
filter. So
um,
you have to reject certain things. You have to filter out some certain
yeah,
things.
yeah, and so it's a kind of defense, if you want to call it that. And I do
No, but
think
defending,
that
I'm saying defending, like if someone maybe may judge you or say something about you, or even to yourself, you feel you have to constantly validate. You have to kind of prove yourself to yourself. You have to constantly validate this story, because
yeah,
I think the difference is there is identity as a set of coordinates, and there is identity as stories about who you are. It's just a set of stories that you
yeah,
constantly feel you have to defend. And so I think what
yeah,
we need to drop in the eighth feather is the stories. But I don't think you have to. I don't even think you can, unless you're telling yourself a story. So dropping the sense of coordinates will be a story, basically. So it will not be a real dropping of a story, but it will be an extra story added on top.
yes, the coordinates. I mean, yes, a sense of alive, sort of being alive. That blood is coursing through the veins, kind of thing. Of course, but
But it's
yeah,
just
I
a
think the
perspective,
story.
because it's like if let's
Yeah,
say that sense of maybe those coordinates will move to an ant, and ants have no blood, and the insect is different. So then
right.
no, it's like it's not an essential property. Even the feeling
No,
of aliveness will not be an essential property of this set of
no,
coordinates.
no. But I think it's basically the idea of I am, however subtle that is, and it's usually, um, it's like we use anything to support that notion of I am. And it's interesting that you see it as a defensive process, because I do think I think you've hit upon something there, because we do defend it again, and we do rationalize it, in any way that we possibly can. It's like we use the fact, for example, that we can differentiate between a cup and a desk and a computer, as being there is this differentiator that we have, and that therefore proves that we exist. We I am.
Well, but we
It,
exist because even if you ask yourself the question if you exist, at least you cannot say you, but you can say something exists, because if you ask yourself the question of existence, then existence is. So this is not an issue. I think it's not about existence versus non-existence. It's more
no, no, it's
the
not.
identity become the stories that you put around that set of coordinates. So but when it's completely naked, so you have removed all the stories and it's just the set of coordinates, then there is nothing
Yeah,
to defend.
no, no, no.
So
It's true.
nothing to
It's not like
validate, nothing to fight for. It's
no, no. That's what people fear, though. I think is that's why people defend it. Is because they feel that they fear that they're going to end up in this desolate void of emptiness. By which they're going to suffer even more, right? Um,
so this
and
I would
yet,
just add to want to add something,
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I would say this suffering itself is not part of the. So let's say imagine you have a reality, like let's say a map, and in some areas
Yeah.
there is like red areas, and you can call them suffering, and blue areas you can call them heaven, whatever. And this
Yeah.
set of coordinates could move over this. So even the suffering will not be a property of the set of coordinates, but it will depend on where the set of coordinates is positioned. So the set of coordinates could go into an area which contains suffering, and then it will feel the suffering, but then it could instantly
Right.
move to another area. So even the suffering itself is outside. So in this idea, everything is outside. It's just a set of coordinates. And so, the distinction inside, outside doesn't make sense. But if we have to pick one for simplicity, we should pick outside. So it's
Right.
everything is outside of this set of coordinates. So including pain and pleasure. So it just happened to move on the map. And sometimes on the map there is pain, sometimes there is pleasure, but it has not pain or pleasure will have nothing to do with the set of coordinates. There will be a property of the map, and the
Well, I
coordinates
do.
move the map.
I think ultimately you're right in that, but I think that usually, even when people have broken Fetter 8, they still have some suffering to address, because I know it's not the case for you, but for a lot of people, the creation of I am is to try to get us a place to land, a place of safety. We've talked about this, of the underlying drive of Fetter 9 being, or 10, which are not really illusions, but underlying human tendencies that we have a valency to create, is that we want a place to land, and what better place to land than an identity, right? A sense of,
So why not just accept identity as the set of coordinates?
Well, good question. Good question. I think most people are conditioned to cherish this I am, and a lot of spiritual paths are about self-realization. It can be a lot about shoring up a sense of identity, ironically, instead of ridding yourself of the burden, which is what it really is. Do you know what I mean? So
what burden?
The burden of all that the stories, as you've put it, that you add on to the coordinates to put it in your language, the whole belief system.
Could it be because it gives a certain sense of predictability? So because if it's just a naked set of coordinates that can move around anything, everything could change instantly. Because let's say the map has pleasure, pain, joy, terror, and these coordinates just move on the map, and you have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. So whereas if you try to kind of build like a shield, so it's almost like the stories about identity are kind of a shield that you build around the set of coordinates, and you say, I'm amazing, I'm great, I'm the best. So you assume that maybe you will not suffer so much, and you will often feel joy. So you kind of dress up with stories, this set of coordinates, so that, think about it. If you're naked and you go out, if it's cold, you freeze. If it's hot, you are hot. If you put clothing on you, you kind of reduce the influence of the environment by making it more predictable. So you're like, if it's snowing and you're dressed, you will feel the cold less.
Of
and
course,
if it's very hot, well, you will feel more hot in this case. But
but you could wear a hat.
You can wear an umbrella, for example. So and you can then believe that the clothing is also you, and it's an element to increase predictability. But in reality, it's just a story like Santa Claus, and at some point something will happen and you will realize that this clothing was kind of not real. So it's better maybe to accept immediately, to realize that it's just a story, basically, because it's not just to add one point, it's not that you're really dressed with this clothing, is you're just telling yourself the story that you are dressed. But then in reality, it's almost like the invisible clothing, so let's say you think you have this big coat, then you go out and you feel as cold as if you were naked. You just have the belief that you have this coat, and you're like, why is it not working, this coat? Because of course the coat does not exist, it's just a story.
Right. You've just reminded me of something, though, which can happen. It should be a sort of health warning, which I do give if I'm guiding people, that when the Fetter 8 falls, it's as if you lose an ability to filter, not just, to filter trauma experience, or also energetic experiences. And it's as if, along with Fetter 8 going, you lose the ability to compartmentalize, to put some experience on a separate stage. And I don't know exactly how it works, but when Fetter 8 went down, and this has been true of other people who've experienced more trauma, say in childhood, they suddenly felt like they had no control anymore. In fact, they did have no control anymore. I had no control anymore of when or how that past experience would just bubble up into awareness and be
so the trauma could pop at any time.
Could pop up any time. So I had to go through quite an adjustment period, actually, when you talk about being naked in a way, naked coordinates. In a way, that is what it felt like. It's very apt image. And yes, to lose the compartments or lose the clothing, which held certain experience in abeyance, right? And certain experience.
But just that the clothing is not real in this example, yes. So it's an illusion.
No, but somehow mysteriously it did kind of do some kind of job of compartmentalizing or keeping.
But do you think it can still work? The clothing.
It can still.
So the story can.
So this was. Yeah, so I had to, and many others do go through a period there where, basically, I also had all these Kundalini experiences, which were sort of a energetic experience or chakra energy, I don't know what, healing, which I was surprised by because I didn't even believe in chakras, or tantric experience that much until I had
worked. That stuff worked.
Yeah. There was something,
but again, it doesn't mean anything. It's like it. Of course, I mean the distinction between science and magic is just that magic is unexplained. So science is what we can explain, and magic is what we cannot explain, but we will explain one day. So let's say maybe fire was magic in the Stone Age, but today is not magic. So I mean, maybe there is stuff we don't see, and there are tricks to maybe you can heal on some whatever Kundalini or chakra or whatever. I mean, maybe they do exist. Just that science has not yet proven it, or it's difficult to prove, but maybe it does exist. But still, this has nothing to do with identity or with. I mean, I would say, let's talk about the soul. So let's say I die and I become a soul and I'm in heaven and whatever heaven is or a hell. Maybe I have no idea, or maybe there is just no hell and no heaven in this. Let's say I'm in some reality where I exist as my soul. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. It's like it's just that the set of coordinates is now looking at Giotto's soul. It doesn't make it more. I mean, even Giotto's soul will not. I wouldn't consider it as an ultimate form of identity. It's just it will be the set of coordinates just looking at this Giotto's soul, and maybe that soul exists, and just like that Kundalini or chakra thing, it may very well exist. It doesn't have to not exist or exist. I mean, there's for sure there is plenty of stuff that science has not managed to prove but do exist, but it has nothing to do with identity, I would say.
No. I mean, I didn't feel like it was personal, by the way. I mean, these experiences, I didn't feel like, they're happening to me or in a funny sort of way. I couldn't even tell if they were physical or not physical sometimes. It was very strange, other order of experience in a way. But yeah, it certainly happened after Fetter 8 or as part of Fetter 8 falling. So I just thought I'd mention it because for some people it can be a bit of a watershed, sort of I don't know. It can be quite a significant moment when those last bits of identity fall away.
Because I would say it's like I think, I mean, this is just my opinion, but I think it matches what Buddha says, which is the idea that one should not go from identifying with the body to identified with the soul, and the soul may very well exist. I mean, it may exist, it may not, but Buddha doesn't say the soul does not exist. So the soul may very well exist, but that doesn't mean it is your identity. So why would you go from identified with your body to identify with your soul? Because your soul may also die and then become the soul, and the soul may die and become the soul. I mean, we don't know why shouldn't souls also have a soul and they could die and become the soul? I mean, why not? It's like we have no idea. I mean, we don't even know what happened after our physical death. How do we know what happened after the soul death? Maybe there is another soul that is the soul of the soul. We have no idea. So really, the idea of identifying with something, I think, is kind of a story. All we know for sure is that it's a perspective on reality. So we know there is some stuff. We don't know what it is. Yeah, it's like what I call reality is just the opposite of non-existence. So we know that there is no such thing as non-existence. So there is something. Well, that's something I call reality. It doesn't have to be real or whatever. It's just the opposite of non-existence. So there is something, I call it reality, and it seems that this something can be perceived
There's
from
something
different
going
points of
on.
view.
Yeah,
There is
for
something
sure.
going on, and but that something going on can be perceived from different perspectives. That's it.
Right.
And those perspectives may include the afterlife and the afterlife and the afterlife. I mean, who knows? Maybe there are many layers,
Right.
so we don't
Yeah.
know.
No, we
So
don't.
I think it want us to be careful, because when you talk about energy and physical, non-physical, one may end up falling for the trick of, falling for the trap of saying, oh yeah, I'm not my body, I'm my soul, or I'm not made of
Oh,
matter,
right.
but I'm made of energy. But no, it's the
Oh,
same story.
no. I was aware of that even as
No,
it
I'm
was
not saying
going
for you,
on.
I'm saying for the people that are watching this video. They may think, so I'm not the body, I'm the soul, or I'm not made
Oh, I see.
of
Oh,
matter,
no.
I'm made of energy. But no, it's like, it's the same thing.
Right.
Thinking you are energy or thinking you're a body is the same. You just think you are something
Yeah.
definite, something specific, with properties, attributes, qualities, etc.
I think that's the main point, Giotto, as you say. It's that attribution of
Yeah,
identity that
of
is
qualities, of
the
stories and qualities to
stories,
something.
qualities. Yeah, as being
I
me.
just call it a
That's
set
me.
of coordinates, but we can just call it something.
Yeah, this is happening, but it's not. It's not me, right? Yeah.